guys of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
They're ever concerned it wouldn't get done before the season?
I wasn't really sure. I kind of was out of the loop, to be honest, throughout the whole process. I was just kind of worried about playing good football. But I just knew I wanted to be here for a long time. I think they knew that, we knew that, so not really. I'm just excited to keep it rolling.
And welcome into Mackey and Judd. Phil off for the Scoop segment today, but you know who's never off from the Scoop segment? Our guy Darren Doogie Wolfson from Channel 5 Eyewitness News. And, of course, the Scoop podcast, which you can hear on all the various Score North platforms, as well as bonus scoops on Tuesday. And then the ordinary scoops that we like to do with Doogie on Mackey and Judd on Thursday, executive producer Declan Goff. And you just saw a highlight of the press conference Brian O'Neill did yesterday after signing a 5-year extension, $92.5 million. The most important number in that, $49 million of that is guaranteed. And Doogie, we talked about this probably getting done on Tuesday, and your spidey senses were very much up then. So I take it that this was zero surprise that before opening day now, Brian O'Neill is locked up to a long-term extension.
Good morning, Judd. Absolutely. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. It was not reckless speculation when you and I went back and forth.
Speculation.
On Tuesday, we both had a sense, not just me, we both had a sense via some text messages that this thing was moving along. Now, I didn't necessarily think we would have news on Wednesday late morning, early afternoon. So maybe the timing surprised me ever so slightly. But we did on Tuesday talk about how this particular week, entering week one, across the league, you oftentimes see a lot of extensions get done. I will say, really nice job by his representation. He got taken care of. Now, the Vikings can frame it any way they want. I'm sure the Vikings can point to different aspects of the deal where they say, okay, we won that. But, just looking at it from what I can gather, Judd, this is a really solid win for Brian O'Neill and his agents.
And as far as to that point, Dukes, average annual value, this now puts him among right tackles, second in the National Football League for right now. That will obviously change at some point here. Ryan Ramczyk, who's an outstanding right tackle and former Badger, correct? For the Saints, he is the top guy when it comes to average annual value. And now Brian O'Neill is going to be second. So let me ask you about that, Dukes, because I did see some debate on Twitter about, does he deserve this? Is he that good? And my response on this one is, yes, he does. He has proven to be the best player on an offensive line that's had obviously a ton of questions. He stepped in as a rookie, started 11 games, then 15, then 16. Hasn't missed games because of injury, has been very solid. He might not be unbelievable in pass protection, but he's still improving. And something else I don't think we're talking about, Dukes, he has spent a lot of time playing beside suspect right guards. And the offensive line operates as a unit. It's not standalone. I understand that the tackles are more on islands, but they also need some help here. And when you're asked to play, for instance, I think it was 4 games last year by Drew Samia, who was waived in an injury settlement yesterday, but was a colossal disaster. I think that's a big ask and probably makes Brian O'Neill's job that much tougher. So I'm curious what you think, because I actually think, although his reps did a great job in this contract negotiation, I also think that this is probably incredibly fair and a good extension to give at the price it is.
Yes. I mean, Judd, this is the going rate for really good right tackles. We can debate how good Brian O'Neill is, but there is no debate about whether he's good or not. He is good. Is he very good? Is he a superstar? We can have those debates, but we know he is a solid right tackle. The cap is going up. If you look at the franchise tag number for right tackles, if it had gotten to that point, if he had played out this 4th year of his contract, if he had hit free agency next March, the franchise number is north of, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but last time I saw, it's like north of 20 million. It's right in that ballpark. It is a significant number. So if you think about, the Vikings being able to avoid having to use the franchise tag on O'Neill, he's an incredible athlete. I didn't realize how good of a basketball player he was in high school. in the state of Delaware. And I get it, it's Delaware, but I saw the note. He was the player of the year his senior year
Converted
in the
tight end,
state of
Biggie.
Delaware. So just an incredible athlete. He was a second-round pick out of Pittsburgh for a reason. He turns 26 next week, so you think about having him for his ages 26, 27, 28, 29, maybe beyond years, those seasons. Like everything about him, his build, his athleticism, you feel pretty good paying a guy like that. In terms of just him in the building, him being a teammate, I've always heard A-plus stuff. Like, this is a guy that it wasn't real hard for Rob Brzezinski and Rick Spielman to say, okay, that's a guy we're going to take care of.
And I think the thing, too, is there's a lot of debates and things that we can bring up that the Vikings probably don't do perfectly. But I think there's no debate that one thing under the Wilfs that this team has consistently done and done a great job of is if they have homegrown talent, they reward it, take care of it, and keep it. And that is a consistency that's been really, I think, pretty much off the charts in a good way. That's something that, and that goes to Spielman and Brzezinski as well, but it really started with the Wilfs in they clearly long ago said, if we have players, we're keeping them. And the Vikings through the years, I go back to Dalvin Cook last year. They have, right or wrong, they have done a fantastic job of saying, if we develop you and you become the player that we expected, you're going to get paid, and you're going to get paid by us.
Yes, and they've also established an environment where guys wanted to come back, you know, whether that's Sheldon Richardson, Stephen Weatherly, who we can get to the pay cut he just accepted today, or maybe it was yesterday, but the news came out this morning. Mackenzie Alexander, like guys, there's a genuineness, you know, and it's Royce's favorite buzzword in sports, right? Culture. And I don't even know how to quantify culture, and we can have fun with that word, but whatever the secret sauce they have over there at TCO Performance Center, heck, maybe it's just the Performance Center, how nice it is, the Taj Mahal of NFL practice facilities, them in Dallas and Miami and Seattle, but it's a really nice, you know, practice facility. Maybe that has a lot to do with it. But whatever the secret sauce is, guys really, really like being a member of the Vikings.
So, Dukes, we start, obviously, the season on Sunday, Vikings and Bengals. What is your expectation now? Because training camp didn't go great. Like there were blips there. The exhibition games, the depth looked terrible. Besides that, the starters, I don't think played enough to make assessments on them. But as we start the season now in what is obviously a huge year for Zimmer and probably a very important year for Spielman as well, what's your expectation for this team?
My expectation is relatively high. Judd, I'm not quite sure it's as high as it is internally. Now, I'm not sure anyone, Zim, Rick, others will go on the record with their level of optimism. Now, Zim has suggested, I think we have a pretty good team. Now it's on us to go out and prove it. But the expectations internally are incredibly high. For me, I think they can get to double-digit victories. Now, the schedule, you look at the schedule and you're like, are you kidding me? You have to play the AFC North. You have to play the NFC West. Like, could it get any harder than that? You know, they have the extra road game against what appears to be an up-and-coming Chargers team. So it's a really challenging schedule. So if they end up 8-9 or 9-8 below double-digit victories, I would not be overly surprised. Lack of depth is a thing. Mike Zimmer sat down with Joe Schmidt late last week for a TV piece that aired on Channel 5 on Sunday night. I'll play that entire interview. It was about a 10, 11-minute interview. I'll play it in its entirety on the next Scoop podcast. But Zim said, hey, I feel really good about my first 22 to 24 players. After that, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but after that, we don't have much depth in a bunch of spots. So like durability, maybe more so with this team than others. I mean, you think about all the guys that are making 8 figures. I mean, they take care of their really good players. They pay those guys, but because of that, you know, maybe, you know, the backup safety and the backup linebacker and so on, you know, you got to have minimum type guys or, you know, really young guys that need to show right away, like the 3rd round pick from North Carolina. He looks like he's really far away but he's a good athlete. Maybe he can help on special teams. But like if he has to play base defense downs, the Vikings will be screwed, right? So like there is a lack of depth. But if they can maintain durability, if you can tell me Dalvin Cook is going to play 15 or 16 games, hopefully 17. But if you can tell me 15 or 16, he played 14 last year, probably could have played week 17, that meaningless game in Detroit, but his father passed away. But he was relatively durable last year. If Dalvin Cook can do that again, if Danielle Hunter can play 16, 17 games, I think 10-7 is incredibly realistic. And if you get to 10, Judd, I think you're one of the 7 playoff teams.
Dukes, when you look at the players on the hot, or coaches on the hot seat, Mike Zimmer potentially being obviously on the hot seat if things don't go up to expectations this year. But when Zimmer's talking about the lack of depth, I mean, isn't Rick Spielman also looped into that, considering 15, how many draft picks last year, just some of the most in the NFL? They've had so many draft picks, over 25 players drafted basically of the last 2 drafts. How can you really have depth issues? Or I can understand why you do, but if Zimmer is on the hot seat, is what I'm trying to say, shouldn't Rick Spielman be equally there, considering the lack of depth or lack of players that have turned into quality starters or backups for the Vikings going forward?
For sure, Declan, and that's why I think those two are tied at the hip. Now it's a chicken and egg thing, right? I mean, Rick could say, "Hey, I gave you the talent, Zim. It's on you and your staff to develop that talent." But it goes back to what Judd and I talked about on Tuesday. When you look at this rookie class, so this 10 or 11 draft pick rookie class, like who is going to make an impact this year? Now, Smith Marset, the one-time Gopher commit for about 12 hours before he flipped to Iowa. He's going to be a kick returner. Maybe he does some things if there are some opportunities to return kicks, which are few and far between now in the NFL game. But if he shows some flashes in that regard, maybe they find some creative ways to mix him in certain packages, jet sweeps, and what have you. So maybe the answer is Amir Smith Marset. Maybe Wyatt Davis eventually becomes the starter next to Brian O'Neill at right guard. I do think eventually Christian Darrisaw moves into that left tackle spot, but when? I don't think you're going to do it all of a sudden heading into week 3 against Seattle or week 4 against Myles Garrett and Cleveland, unless Rashad Hill gets hurt or he's completely miserable. And if he's completely miserable, there's probably a decent chance they're 0-2 or 0-3 at that point. After the bye, you start with Dallas, DeMarcus Lawrence and the Cowboys. Are you really going to have Christian Darrisaw make his first start on Sunday Night Football against DeMarcus Lawrence and the Cowboys? So, I'm struggling to find where you make that, so-called seamless transition to Darrisaw. So, Declan, look at the rookie class. Judd, what rookie is going to make an impact this year? It's 11, right? 11 draft picks. It's double digit. 11 draft picks. What draft pick is making an impact this year?
And it was what I was about to ask you and both you guys. I mean, in terms of making an immediate impact from this draft class, it might be Amir Smith Marset. It might be in terms of week 1, just because he's also a wide receiver. And look, it's hard to have a sexy performance being an offensive lineman. It really is, unless you're just nuts and bolts into football. But what rookie can step in and make the closest impact in week 1 or even this season for the Vikings? It seems like it's completely up in the air.
I think Darrisaw probably plays, to get back to Doogie's point or question. I think Darrisaw, and we talked about this Tuesday, plays coming out of the bye. I don't think Rashad Hill's a viable starter, so I don't think it's going to be you can't take Rashad Hill out. He's played so well. I mean, he, in my opinion, is going to be treading water probably at that position, and that would be good. So I think that Darrisaw would play Dex coming out of the bye, and I think he's still the odds-on favorite to have an impact. And I will say this, interior draft pick linemen are hard to sort of decipher their progress because that interior line's a little bit more difficult, I think, to go X's and O's on and break down. Tackles really aren't. So a left tackle, if a left tackle is good, you're like, hey, that guy's good. And if a left tackle's bad, you're like, oh my God, what's happening? So I think the question of what rookie's going to make an impact comes probably back to Darrisaw. And then Smith Marset does have speed. I like him. The one guy from the 2020 class that I could see emerging now is KJ Osborne. He was really good in training camp, you guys. I don't think he is a very good returner because I don't think he's got a returner's burst, But I will say, in watching him in practice almost every day, that guy's footwork has improved so much. Like he's doing the toe tap now. He's looking really good. So that could be a guy to keep an eye on as far as a 2020 pick who really we didn't think that much of, who could really progress in his second year. So that's just a thought.
Yeah, I'm with you on Osborne. Now, I like D.D. Westbrook. You know, he told me a couple weeks ago, you know, and he was a full participant Wednesday in practice. He's good to go on Sunday. So I'll be curious to see how Clint Kubiak ends up using D.D. But yeah, I think KJ Osborne is going to take a pretty sizable leap forward here in year two. But then you think about some of the other guys from last year, you know, Cam Dantzler now relegated to third team, you know, Jeff Gladney.
Oh yeah.
Not here.
Yeah.
You know, so there are still some swings and misses, it appears. But yeah, I think as a later round draft guy, Judd, yeah, I think they hit on KJ Osborne.
Do we think that Anthony Barr plays on Sunday? And the first injury report of the season came out Wednesday, and it's now being listed as a knee. What I heard is he actually tweaked a hamstring in training camp, and that led to knee problems because he tried to push through it. But it's a knee. My sense is that they're going to be cautious. And if he comes back today and feels good, that's probably a good sign he plays on Sunday, Dukes. But I think if he comes back today sore, I'm not going to be surprised if he doesn't play until week 2.
I would agree on that. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to tell you I know definitively 100%, yeah, Barr in or out on Sunday. But I think as we sit here at 10:20 a.m. on Thursday morning, they don't hit the practice field for another 3 hours or so. So, yeah, we'll have much more information later this afternoon. I think it's exactly what you said, because I had heard initially it was the hammy, you know, but then we had heard knee. It's listed as a knee. So the way you laid it out is my sense on how everything transpired. But yeah, I don't know. You know, if he's not out there, we know Nick Vigil will be, you know, base defense guy. But I don't know if he'll play on Sunday. We'll know a lot more later today.
Oh, and last thing, pay cut. You said that a player took a pay cut. Tell us more about that with Stephen Weatherly.
Yeah, so Stephen Weatherly taking a $500,000 pay cut. It was either, hey, Stephen, you take the pay cut, or we are releasing you. And so he is taking the pay cut. Kudos to Chris Thomason of the Pioneer Press with the initial steam. Where I can advance the news is he does have a chance to earn back up to $1 million. It is $250,000 for every 2 sacks. Now, Stephen Weatherly did not have 1 sack last year for Carolina. So if he gets to 2 sacks, he at least makes back half of the pay cut. Him getting to 8 sacks probably is pretty unrealistic, especially after they brought in Everson Griffin, who's going to be in passing situations. DJ Wanham will be in there oftentimes first and second down. So I'm not even quite sure Weatherly is going to earn a bunch of snaps if guys maintain their health. But yeah, Stephen Weatherly was given an ultimatum. Take this offer or we are releasing you. I'll give you one other note, a name to keep an eye on, a guy that the Vikings have had interest in going back a couple years. Safety Will Parks.
Oh, yeah.
He's sitting out there right now. Let's not forget the week 1 rule. If you're on the roster, the guaranteed money and all that. So don't be surprised if the Vikings at least, well, they've already made an inquiry, but I guess put it this way, keep an eye on that name as we head into next week.
Interesting. Wolves team. What's up with the Wolves, who you told us on Tuesday, a lot of them have gathered in Miami for a retreat and to bond and practice together, I would guess. What's up with the Wolves?
Yeah, and Jared Vanderbilt is there, restricted free agent. Jared Vanderbilt. Technically, now he has a qualifying offer he can sign, but technically he is a free agent. He is not a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves, yet he's in Miami. So that just tells you, Judd, Jared Vanderbilt, one way or another, is going to be back. Now, I checked last night. I was told a deal is still not close. Now, that could change with one new offer, one new phone call, but as of last night, a deal was not close. I still think it ends up being a multi-year deal, that he doesn't sign the qualifying offer, but one way or another, Jared Vanderbilt is going to be back. I told you on Tuesday, Jordan McLaughlin would not be there. Same boat. He is a free agent. Yes, restricted free agent with a qualifying offer, but he is a free agent. Jordan McLaughlin is not a member of the Timberwolves. So in his mind and his representation's mind, like there wasn't a reason for him to be in Miami. He's not a member of the team. Anthony Edwards is not in Miami. Maybe I'm burying the lead on this mini story. I am told, though, nothing to worry about. He's taking care of some personal stuff. Not the business of anybody that in my position, fans, everything's fine. He is going to join the Wolves for workouts next week. It won't be in Miami. It'll be back here. But Anthony Edwards will be back working out in the gym next week. He's doing okay coming off the ankle injury in Vegas when he was playing for the USA Select team. Talking to Chris Finch and even some others, because I get it, Chris could have been incredibly biased, but Chris was in the gym when Edwards hurt his ankle. But talking to some other people, I think he would have made Team USA. He would have had a chance to go to Tokyo. Doesn't mean he would have earned minutes for Greg Popovich, but he was about the best player in those early sessions before he got hurt for that USA Select team. But bottom line, he'll be okay. When training camp begins here in about 3 weeks, he'll be fine. The preseason opener is a month away, a little less than a month away, October 4th. He should be fine. So nothing to worry about. But right now, Anthony Edwards is not in Miami. Alex Rodriguez hosted the contingent at his house the other night. Mark Laurie is down there. So Chris Finch is down there. Gerson Rosas is down there. A couple other members of the front office. Some assistant coaches are down there. Some trainers. So, it's a collection with players too. And the two-way guys, Nathan Wright, McKinley Wright, both those guys are down there. So, it's a contingent of, 40, 50 people. But yeah, A-Rod, I think he's got the space at his house to hold 40 or 50 people.
How about a scoop session from A-Rod's place? If Jared Vanderbilt can go, Dukes, why can't you, me, and Judd go? We're not on the Timberwolves yet, right? We can go.
What? You bring the cigars, Declan. Okay. I'll line it up. All right?
Deal. They
got to be the best cigars on the planet, though.
I'll see what I can do. Hopefully A-Rod is up for it as well. Dukes, you mentioned preseason starts October 4th. Regular season, the NBA, I believe October 19th is the official tip-off there. What's a better chance? Ben Simmons remains on the 76ers when the regular season opens, or Ben Simmons is on the Minnesota Timberwolves when the regular season opens on October 19th?
So it's only those two choices?
What's your gut telling you? Those are your only two choices.
Those are my only two? Okay. I will say of those two, he's a member of the Sixers. I mean, the Wolves still badly want him. Nothing has changed on that front. I said it in June that the Wolves, quote, want Simmons badly. That is the same now 2.5 months later. Nothing has changed in that regard. The Wolves badly, how about badly want Ben Simmons. But it's still a hard trade to concoct. There's still a lot of moving parts there. Now, league people still think a trade is coming. I'll be curious to hear Brian Windhorst's thoughts. I'm catching up with Windy tomorrow, nice. So I'll see if he can offer.
He's got thoughts.
Yeah, maybe some stuff that I haven't heard.
Yeah.
And he's close, really, really close with Ben Simmons' agent, Rich Paul. And Windy's got sources. He knows Daryl Morey well. He knows Elton Brand well. He knows everybody involved in this situation. So I'll be interested in picking his brain. But league people still think there's no way, it's too toxic that Ben can't start the season in Philly, that market would eat him alive, that there's still a lot of, what's the best way to put it? He's pissed off at what Doc Rivers said after the playoff loss to Atlanta, where he was asked, can Ben be, I don't know if it was lead guard or an alpha or a main player on a championship team. And Doc didn't say yes. I mean, I forget exactly what Doc said. It
remains to be determined, I think it was.
Something like that, to be determined, whatever it was. But he didn't say yes. So going back to that Doc Rivers answer, that still pisses off Ben and his camp. So there's a lot of animosity there. So I still subscribe to the idea that it's when, not if. A trade is coming. I saw the latest betting odds. Now, there's a million different offsite betting websites offshore with different odds, but I saw one in particular on Wednesday suggesting that the Wolves were the second betting favorite. I believe Portland was the betting favorite on that particular betting website. I mean, everybody knows, if they listen to us, if they listen to others, everybody knows the Wolves want them, so you should put the Wolves relatively high up. But, until I hear that the Sixers are interested in some of the Wolves' parts, or that they can indeed find a third team. I still wonder about Oklahoma City, San Antonio, some teams with cap space. If you can find a way to involve, somebody in that regard, if Oklahoma City wants to still accumulate a bunch of draft picks, but like, are they giving up Shea Gilgeous-Alexander? And he goes to Philly. I don't see that scenario coming to fruition. So that's where it's hard. It's really hard to concoct, legit 3-team trade scenarios. But the Wolves are going to continue to try. Like, Daryl Morey knows where his former colleague Gerson Rosas stands. I can promise you that.
So 2 things stand out from reports, and I think Windy had one of them, if not both, this week. But there's 2 things that I've seen in the past 5 days that are really intriguing about this. One is Ben Simmons' contract calls for a very good portion of his 2021-22 salary to be paid by like opening night, which means, and I don't think NBA players get paid until the season starts. So that basically means that money is his. It can't be taken. So the Sixers don't have the ultimate hammer of saying, well, if you're not here, you're going to lose a lot of your salary for the coming season. So that's point Ben Simmons. The other thing I saw that was really interesting, and this was Windy, I think, for sure, and to what you're saying, Doogie, I'm sure it came through his agent, but the Simmons camp has made it clear to the Sixers that it's not the Simmons camp's job to rehabilitate his value. I think they're mad about what you said, which is when push comes to shove after the playoffs and Doc was asked, he's like, I don't know if this guy can play or not. And so the Simmons camp is saying, we don't want you holding us hostage and telling us you got to come back and play and get your value back up. It's your fault it's down. Now, that might be folly, but it's a very the animosity between these two sides is so high that I don't think Ben Simmons has Jimmy Butler capabilities of going into practice and blowing the team up. But I do think that as mad as he can be, he's probably there. But both of those things just lead me to believe that if you're the Sixers, you need to get something done here. And like trying to hold Simmons hostage into the season, usually that type of thing backfires. It doesn't help teams.
I'm with you. Now, when you typically give up the best player in a transaction, it's hard to say you won the trade, but there are differing opinions on how good, how valuable Ben Simmons is. I just know this much. Daryl Morey needs to stop asking for the moon. Maybe that Drew Holiday trade of a year ago was an outlier. All those assets New Orleans got. You're not getting the Drew Holiday package for Ben Simmons. So you need to temper your expectations. And that's why I wonder, I hear there's not a whole lot of Philly interest in Malik Beasley, but I wonder if in the end, can you find a way with Jaden McDaniels with a future first or multiple future first, but not more than 2? And maybe there would be some lottery protection on one of them, but just to make some money work, would Philly say, you know what, Malik, that's pretty good value. Doug McDermott has that contract, and you'd rather have Malik Beasley than Doug McDermott. That Malik, he can do some things offensively. Yeah, we'll need to help him on the defensive end, but there's something there. So I can't help but wonder if eventually Morey says, and you know what, let's ship him out to the West. We don't want to deal with him in the Eastern Conference. We're not trading him to Toronto or Boston or Cleveland. I know Bickerstaff and the Cavs have some interest, but does Philly say, yeah, we don't want to keep him in the East. Let's move him West. And right now it sounds like Sacramento and Golden State are just not that interested. But I also wonder if that changes. Portland, I still wonder if CJ McCollum for Ben Simmons, if gosh, that just makes a whole lot of sense if maybe that's the trade that does eventually happen. But I also do think, can you make a trade work where, yeah, Beasley's not the feature piece, and you would have to move Jaden McDaniels, which I think would upset a lot of Wolves fans. And I get it. I think he's got a really, really bright future.
Declan be upset.
Yeah. But if you have a chance to acquire a multi-time All-Star, a multi-time first-team all-defensive player with 4 years left on his contract, he was the number 1 overall pick for a reason, I think you roll those dice, and that's where the Wolves are thinking that, hey, if we have a chance, why wouldn't we want to acquire the former number 1 overall pick who's done enough? Yeah, he was pitiful against Atlanta in the playoffs, but there's enough of a track record. Let's not fixate on that one particular playoff series. Let's look at the full body of work. And that's where the Wolves are thinking. There's also, some internal pressure. There always is. But, with Mark and A-Rod coming in, if you're Gerson, if you're others in the front office, you got to be thinking, could be a little bit of a slippery slope. Like, we can't just keep being the 12th or 13th best team in the Western Conference. At some point here, we need to make a leap, maybe even a sizable leap. And Ben Simmons more immediately would help that cause compared to Jaden McDaniels and, future first-round picks.
I have joined Declan Goff, Dukes, on the Joe Ryan bandwagon, and it's moving quickly. Now Cleveland's bad. I get that, okay? Cleveland offensively at the plate is bad. So I'm not trying to say that that he beat the greatest offensive juggernaut. But I will say this. His 2 starts have been damn impressive. And this is the most hope I've had for a young Twins pitcher probably since Barrios and maybe before, just as far as first glance. Could change. Don't know. But this has been impressive. And last night in Cleveland was impressive. And the other thing is, this kid, I love him. He's articulate. He's mature beyond his years. There's nothing about this that seemingly phases him. I mean, this is the mental makeup, and this is going to be a hot take, and it might be too hot. This is the mental makeup of an ace. Like the mental makeup, how he talks, how he goes about talking about what he's doing, how he's not flustered by it. He clearly is trying to say this is still tough, but he's thinking to himself, I'm damn good. I love that. Well,
and a lot of major leaguers who first get up struggle with that. Yeah. I mean, it's the aura, it's the body language, it's the confidence that is on full display. The fastball has really good life, and it's got some deception. You still wonder about the off-speed stuff, but yeah, there's a lot to like. Like I reached out to Nick Anderson, Minnesota native, who's a pitcher for the Rays. And when the trade happened, in late July, I said, hey, congratulations, you love Nelly down there, but do you know either of these guys, Ryan or Strotman? Nick said, yeah, I don't know much about Strotman, but I can tell you, I know Ryan, and I like him. You'll love the fastball. And so, I'm going to trust Nick's expertise on that. Talking to Rick Knapp, the Durham Bulls AAA pitching coach right after the trade. I mean, he was getting emotional talking about Joe. Like you could tell just via the computer screen, via Zoom chat that there was a bond there, Knapp with Joe Ryan. And then just going over to Tokyo, maybe just, coming off the high of the way he pitched in Tokyo, maybe that's feeding into right now. Now you're right. I mean, that Cubs lineup last week is about a AAA lineup. That Indians lineup last night, you got Ramirez, you got Rosario, but they're not a whole lot there. So it's been 2 very favorable matchups, but it's not like he needs to apologize for that. So yeah, like that's one of those trades where you look at the Rays, the clear-cut number 1 team in the American League. Nelson Cruz has been great, had 2 home runs a couple nights ago, had a key RBI in last night's game, although Boston ended up scoring a couple runs very late to win, but he had a go-ahead RBI late. Nelson Cruz has been pretty much everything that Tampa could have hoped for. And Tampa, it's like the one organization that they have an abundance of pitchers. They have so many guys that they were okay. Like they feel like Nelly Cruz can help them win the American League, ultimately win a World Series. So I think Tampa would do that trade again, even seeing what Joe Ryan did in Tokyo, seeing these first 2 starts from Joe Ryan in the big leagues. I'm nearly positive Tampa would still make the trade. But if you're the Twins, like what a win for a guy that was going to leave or would have had the option to sign elsewhere this winter. You can always bring him back if you want to. Nelly did enjoy his time here. Like, why wouldn't you have traded him? And that's why, why didn't you trade Michael Pineda? They could have gotten something for Pineda. Simmons, no. But, I would have traded any pending free agent. But in the case of Cruz, definitely a win for the Twins front office.
Dukes, too, I think what I like a lot about him, too, is, as Judd was saying, his demeanor. And he was on with Bally's right after the game yesterday with Dick Bramer and Roy Smalley. And he talked about how he was upset that he was still in the minor leagues. He was pissed off that he was still in the minors. And I know he went to the Olympics, so maybe that delayed a little bit of things. But he's been taking that aggression out in his first 2 starts, and that's where he's been showing off. And I just think a player like that is so needed on this organization. And, Josh Donaldson's brash. Josh Donaldson's very, very confident and maybe sometimes too brash. But I think this organization has just had such a tendency of work hard and wait for your opportunity. And this goes beyond just the players in the team, but the front office, the broadcasting crew, everything involved. I think what Joe Ryan brings to the table is exactly what this ball club needs, which is a little bit of swagger and a little bit more confidence to kind of raise the expectations for a fan base that is starving for this Twins team to be relevant again.
Swagger. Good word, Declan. That's it, right? Like, how many guys, when you think of that word, swagger, how many guys on the current Twins roster have swagger? It's few and far between, but Joe Ryan has swagger. And you think about next year's opening day rotation, maybe we can put Bailey Ober in pencil. At this point, we can probably put Joe Ryan in pencil. I don't know who else fills out the rotation. I can't see a scenario where Michael Pineda is re-signed, but he is a free agent, so I can't put Pineda in quite yet. They'll chase some other free agent or multiple free agents, but some of these other guys, Balazovic, some other guys are knocking on the door. Josh Winder, but he's been hurt. Duran, but he's been hurt. There's some guys that can help them maybe as soon as like late May, early June, but when talking about early April, and with the caveat of who even knows if we'll have opening day in late March, early April, with the collective bargaining agreement expiring in early December. But going on the idea that they find a way, the next season is a normal season, 162 games. Like at this point, even with the small sample size, just because of their limited options, like you feel pretty good about Joe Ryan being in next year's opening day rotation.